I forgot to welcome a lot of delegates who came from overseas to this conference, from Singapore, from around the US, and a lot of our providers who come from Europe and all over the US as well. But of course, California is the heartland of surrogacy. This is where surrogacy has been occurring probably for the longest anywhere in the world in terms of gestational compensated surrogacy. And Karen Sinisi, who I'm going to introduce to you, has been doing surrogacy for probably longer than anybody I know. She's with Centre for Surrogate Parenting. Whenever I want to find an older child, a teenager or a young adult to talk about surrogacy at events, I always ask Karen, because she's always got a ton of older kids. And there'll be, I think, growing generation has got a young adult to talk today about it, if you'd like to talk to somebody. So CSB's had, I think, over 2,200 births via surrogacy, so they're highly experienced in this area. And they've been awarded for many of the work they've done. They've got some great processes in place, and they know just how to do this, given they've been doing it for so long. Karen's going to talk to you now about the agency process in surrogacy and how agencies work in more detail, to give you a bit more overview of that. Please welcome Karen Sinisi to the stage.
He's at least, 5 foot taller than me? So hello. Today I'm going to be talking about managed surrogacy. So when you decide you want to participate in surrogacy, let's get started. There's only 4 journeys that you can take. You've got family and friends, you've got online surrogacy, and then you've got agency surrogacy. And there's 2 different kinds of agencies. Family and friends is the be-all of surrogacy. I am very supportive of it. I think it works fantastic. If you've got a family or friend that's willing to assist you, that is absolutely marvelous. The only recommendation I have for you is that the very first thing that you need to do if you've got family or friends willing to help you is go and see a mental health professional. That is key to putting this whole journey together. So mental health professional is very, very important. And after that, you need to make sure you have a very good attorney, and there are several of them here today. Online surrogacy. So online surrogacy is more of a do-it-yourself. It really does work. It's just a lot of work that you've got to put into it, and you're going to make all the mistakes that all these agencies have made 36 years ago, and you're going to be starting the process from scratch. The problem with doing it yourself online surrogacy is you're going to meet a lot of different people before you meet that one really good surrogate mom. But you do get lucky, and there are many, many cases, thousands of cases out there where online surrogacy has really, really worked. This is when you post surrogate mom posts, intended parents post, you sort of find each other, you arrange some kind of a meeting, and then you go out to the mental health professional. So if anyone here is thinking of participating in online surrogacy, before you leave here today, make sure you've got the names of the attorneys that are here, make sure you have the names of the IVF doctors that are here, very good clinics, and make sure you have the name of a mental health professional. But it's just a riskier way of going, and it's a longer journey for most part. Then you get agencies. Now, there are 2 kinds of agencies that exist in the world, and you've got those that pre-screen surrogate moms fully and those that partially pre-screen them. And this is the one part where most couples, most intended parents, most single people get confused over. So what I am talking about and what I think is helpful is we take the matching process. So where the matching occurs, everything that occurred before the matching that the agency does is the pre-screening. Everything that occurs afterwards is your cost, and that is a cost that's going to be reoccurring for you. It'll make more sense in just a second. Okay, so how do you know if your surrogate mom is fully pre-screened or partially pre-screened? So what I do when I'm looking at agencies is I first go, as most of you did, to the intended parent part of the website, and I read all the information that the agency has. Then I switch over and I go in as a surrogate mom, and I want to learn from them what they are telling their surrogate moms about the process. And often I find a discrepancy on both sides of the websites. One says fully screened, the other side of the website says we'll get you matched in 2 weeks. incompatible with each other. It takes longer than 2 weeks to screen a surrogate mom. So if you read something like, once you know you have a fantastic match, we will send you off to meet a mental health professional, that's when the match occurs. So if the mental health professional comes afterwards, she has not been fully screened at that particular point. If you get, they will be able to review a surrogate profile on our website. If they are interested in meeting you, we will let you know, and then you sign the agency agreement. Now you're going to do the legal, now you're going to have review of your health insurance, medical, psychological. Again, the match has occurred. So all these things are occurring afterwards. It means that she was partially screened by the agency, not fully screened. Why does this even remotely matter to anyone? Well, it matters most of the time as to who's paying for these costs. So if a surrogate mom comes along when the matching occurs, everything that occurred before the matching that the agency put into this is a cost incurred by the agency. Everything that occurs after the match has occurred is generally a cost incurred by intended parents. So if you are meeting a surrogate mom, and then she goes to the psychologist and she has a social disease testing done, if the psychologist, as an example, doesn't approve the surrogate mom or doesn't approve her husband, then you've paid for that mental health professional's costs, and I believe it goes anywhere between $750 and $1,000, and now you go back to the agency, they match you with another surrogate mom, match occurs, everything below you are paying for the second surrogate mom. So you need to ask the agency that partially screens a surrogate mom who is paying for those costs, and make sure that you either know you're paying for all those costs or that they will say, I'm going to reimburse you. What is a fully screened surrogate mom? A fully screened surrogate mom, I'll go through my process. We have various agencies here. They can use the same slide and tell you where their tick marks are. So before we match a surrogate mom with you, we have invested roughly 3 to 6 months with her. Now remember, out of 400 applicants per month that come to our program, we are accepting maybe 15 candidates. We've got to go through all of those candidates to find the 15 that have passed this entire list. And I would like nothing more, and I think Kim disappeared. Kim from Growing Generations will say the same. We all wish that we could accept 100 of those surrogate moms, but they just won't pass the process. And all these costs, whenever someone doesn't pass one of these levels, is incurred by us as an agency, not by our intended parents. So for an example, I missed all these slides. You got to tell me I got to change. So here's the agency model. We've got the written application, we have the phone interview, you have her OB records that she needs to get, we have a criminal background check on the surrogate mom and her husband nationwide. People move a lot in America. We make sure she's got a driver's license, and we look at her driver's license record. She has met a psychologist in person, her and her husband, and they've done all of their testing, and we have a psychological clearance letter on that candidate. We've also done all the MMPI testing, and some counselors like to do additional testing. She's done her social disease testing. Her partner or husband has done their social disease testing. We've got a current PAP on her. If she hasn't had a current PAP, we are paying as an agency for that current PAP to be done. We make sure she goes back to her OB and has a physical, and we have an approval from her OB that she is fine to carry another pregnancy. We've done all the financial conversations that we need, so that when we are matching a surrogate mom with an intended parent in our program, we already know what the financial requirements are going to be, and we are not having couples and surrogate moms really negotiating. We've actually made sure she's had insurance, and we've evaluated the insurance policy. So what happens when a surrogate mom in an agency that has done all those things goes to your IVF doctor, and your IVF doctor finds out that she's got a polyp, or your IVF doctor starts the process and her lining doesn't get thick, and now we can't work with her as a surrogate mom? Well, all those costs that we talked about are now incurred by the agency. So you haven't paid for that surrogate mom with regards to all of these costs. So the agency now reimburses you all those costs, does another match, and you start again. So very significant difference between a surrogate mom failing a process and you're incurring all the costs, and a surrogate mom fails the process and the agency incurs all the costs. The matching process works differently. I think we went over it slightly already, but in most agencies, there's a mental health professional that does the matching instead of you trying to figure out which surrogate mom is good for you. So the mental health professional, the psychologist, gets to know you as an intended parent or intended parents. We want to know who you are, your relationship. We want to talk to you about termination of a pregnancy, how many embryos to implant. We want to know what kind of relationship you think you want with your surrogate mom before, during, and after the process. Once we've gathered all that information, the mental health professional will talk to the other mental health professional that has met your surrogate mom. So in our program and in most of the bigger programs, the mental health professional that screens your surrogate mom and met her and her husband is the very same person that works with the surrogate mom throughout the process, throughout the pregnancy, and afterwards. So they really get to know the surrogate mom's family. Mental health professionals get together, they talk about which surrogate mom is an appropriate match for which couple. Surrogate mom will get 3 or 4 couples to choose from that are appropriate for them. Surrogate mom will choose one couple. That couple goes to the surrogate mom. This is happening on multi-levels, so you as an intended parent or as intended parents are getting a variety of profiles to choose from. All of them match you appropriately. Now we are going to the legal part of it, and now we're going to start our journey. So a different process and a rather smoother process. I thought it would be helpful to take a little diversion from part of the speech and give you an idea what typically happens in the field of surrogacy. And this is the first time I've ever compiled any of these stats, and I'm really, really excited by some of these stats. You are only the second group in the world to see them. The last was London. So here we go. I actually found them quite interesting. So we've had about 2,300 births, 36 years of experience, never had a surrogate mom change her mind, which is not so remarkable in today's world because we all know how to do surrogacy. But think of this as 36 years ago when we didn't really know what we were doing. 10 to 15 surrogate moms accepted per month, pretty typical amongst most agencies that do full screening, and we get approximately 400 applicants. This slide I found interesting. I took the last 115 pregnancies in our program. 77% of them were from frozen embryos. So these frozen embryos are really working. Go to your doctor, create your embryos in advance. It's not hurting the embryos. We're having great, great success rates. Out of our last 115 pregnancies, 78% were singletons. So all these IVF doctors, I work with everyone that's here, are doing a really, really good job at avoiding those multiples and therefore the high-risk pregnancies. So 78% of all of our last 115 pregnancies were singletons, which is great. The last 168 embryos that we implanted that resulted in a pregnancy, in those cases where the doctor implanted one embryo, 32% pregnancy rate. When we implanted 2 embryos, 33% pregnancy rate. So what this is showing me is that whether the doctor implants 1 or 2 embryos, we're pretty much getting the same success rate. You don't need to implant 2 or 3 embryos to get that wonderful pregnancy. Now, that being said, you do have to look at the age of the egg. So most of these eggs are the age of 38 and below, and many of them are egg donor eggs. When we did implant 2 embryos, we got a 60% singleton rate. So even if you implant the 2 embryos, you're not guaranteed a twin pregnancy. But there was a 40% of those pregnancies resulted in twins. I was surprised to see the stats. Only 49% of our couples are now USA-based. Most of them are international. It used to be the other way around. It used to be about 15% of our program was international. And as you can see, as surrogacy is growing and become more of an international event, more and more couples are coming to the United States. This particular slide I thought was really interesting, and let me go through it with you. So I took my couples that had come to our program and signed up between January and December. Only those couples are the ones that I looked at. 40% got pregnant in a 1-year time period. 18% had delivered in that time period. That's astounding. And part of the reason, a little bit different to what Sam was saying, is in our program right now, our time for matching is 1 to 3 months. So it used to be 5 to 6 months. In fact, when I first came to this field all those years ago, you would wait 18 months for a surrogate mom. That's how long the wait period was. But now, as more and more of these lovely ladies are coming forward, offering to help us all create our families, that wait list has gone down. So our wait period right now is 1 to 3 months. So in a 1-year time period, 58% of the couples in our program got pregnant, 22% are ongoing, 98% of those couples were actually matched in our program, with 2% dropping out. So 98% were matched in a 1-year period, which is great. And then we have the 18% failed. And what that is, that's couples that came to our program to do IVF with their own genes, and then it didn't work after several attempts, and they're not ready to move on to egg donation. So they drop out of the program or they go on hold. It's also those couples that have returned to us for a sibling process where they've got remaining embryos, and they only want to use those remaining embryos. They do not wish to create more embryos. So we implant those once or twice into a surrogate mom. When they run out of embryos, they are done with the process. Sometimes what happens is an intended couple will come to us when they're using their own genes, and they try into a surrogate mom because they had many miscarriages, so they think it's the uterus. They then switch over to surrogacy. We implant those embryos into a surrogate mom. After many failures, the doctor will say to them, I think it's the egg quality, let's switch to egg donation. At which point we say to the couple, let's stop for a moment, because maybe you can carry your own pregnancy, because now we are changing the genes. So maybe go and try once or twice into yourself and then come back to the program. So that's what accounts for this. So what I can say to everyone is, if you're going to do surrogacy, please make sure that you do it right, because in the field of surrogacy, there is absolutely no undos. Thank you. I was on time.
That's great. Thanks, Karen. Where I'm from in Australia, unfortunately, the only way of finding a surrogate for many people is online or via families and friends. And I've seen many, many disasters of people matching online simply because we don't have the... often those people will match and they won't do screening after matching. They'll just think, oh, we'll go forward, I found someone, and there's no structure where I'm from to do that screening. And it ends in a lot of tears for lots of people because they feel like they won't find anybody else, so they'll just go ahead with the person who's not quite right, but they might be okay, and it can be very, very hard. So be very careful if you're trying to do surrogacy independently about making sure that that matching's right. And I think we'll hear more about that a bit later.